in this exploration, we'll examine the creation of the inner enemy and create a framework for understanding how and why a part or parts of us develop that undermine our success, that undermine our well-being. Now, to start off this paradigm, we have to look at the fabric of identity in the context of time. Now, an identity is the identity that the I attaches to, identifies with. So I, the ego, associates itself, attaches itself to a pattern of thinking, feeling, speaking, doing, and being. And having delineated that pattern, this is what I do, this is what I think, what I feel, what I say, this is how I am. This is me. That's a self-referential identity. I am the one who does this, and I am this because I do this, and I do this because that's who I am. It's a loop. An identity is a loop where most of our choices are on autopilot. Right? Now, the reason most of our choices are on autopilot is limited bandwidth of conscious decision-making. Now, to understand this, imagine for a moment that you emerge into existence, that you're not a pattern, but you emerge, your awareness, your pure awareness, and out of this awareness, you must, in each moment, compose a new language, decide what to say in that language, find people able to speak the new language you've just invented. You're going to invent new tones, new sounds, new ranges. Like in your language, it's not going to be a pause language. It's going to be a frequency language, right? Because we have pause and talk. In your language, you will have a continuous, like, and you're going to modulate ups and downs. You'll have a pause maybe between breath, but there's not going to be silence and structure of consonants. It's all going to be tonal pattern, and people are going to have to follow the tones in order to make distinct patterns of rising and falling tones rather than distinct consonant sounds, right? So it's all one kind of pitch, and if you do a high pitch and a low pitch and a high pitch and up 3/8 of a bar, etc., that's going to be your language. It's just nobody speaks it, right? And if you did manage to invent that, which is beyond the capacity of the conscious mind, if you were able to, in a single moment, give birth to an entirely new language, understand what it meant, and find other people who also understood what it meant, and then, in the next moment, it's new, right? Well, if you could do that, then you'd have a processing bandwidth that was so wide, right, that you didn't need most of yourself to be on autopilot. You could be conscious of your breath, you're conscious of your bloodstream, conscious of your nerves, firing synapses. It's just 99% of reality is on autopilot because we have such a narrow focus to do a few things at one time. Like, I can't focus on breath, I can't focus on this, I'm just going to do this one stuff. So the identity is the pattern, and the I is the one that attaches, that identifies with the pattern, whatever it is, and it becomes self-referential. I am, that I am, that I am, right? I'm the one, I am a vegetarian. Why are you a vegetarian? Well, because I think that being a vegetarian is a good idea. So I think that that's a good idea. So I have a good feeling when I do what I think is a good idea. So I eat vegetarian, and I eat vegetarian because that's who I am. And I am because I think that that's a good idea, right? And so it becomes a loop, a self-referential loop, right? We don't examine it again freshly every day. At one point, maybe we did some analysis. Someone showed us a diagram of cows requiring 12 times as much land mass as vegetables for the same person. In other words, if someone becomes a vegetarian, you only have to cut 1 acre of rainforest rather than 12 acres of rainforest if they're meat eaters, right? And we all want to save rainforests and all this. So at one point I analyzed that, and I decided that it was a good idea. And because I decided, I felt good when I did it. And there I am, right? And so that's just on autopilot. So that's the identity. That's the autopilot. Now, some identities, for example, science-based identities, are iterative, meaning they're flexible. There's some code that you can write. For example, go up and down, and never change this pattern. No matter what happens, never change this pattern. Okay, up, down, up, down, up, down. Why are we going up and down? Don't ask that. That's a change of the pattern, right? Just go up and down, up and down. When do we stop this? We don't stop this. We go up and down. So that's a dogmatic pattern, right? Never change this, never question. Do what I say because I said so, and just do it. So you have dogmatic, never-ending patterns that continue until they meet a force equal or greater, because there's no graceful way to end that pattern, right? If you buy into do this, this, and this, and then just continue indefinitely, there's no way out. There's no code in that code that says question the pattern, check in to see how things are doing. There's nothing there. The only question is, do not check at anything else. Do this until I say so, right? Okay. So that pattern is an endless pattern. Now, if someone with, say, 50 pounds of authority or 50 pounds of force or 50 pounds of gunpowder, whatever it is, you have a momentum that's pushing that pattern into place, right? It's usually a parent or a teacher or a priest, something that's saying, do this, or a government, do this because we said so. And so there's a certain amount of mass, energy behind that pattern, right? And so if we're going into that pattern, we're going to continue until either inertia consumes the energy in that pattern, or a pattern equal or greater stops the pattern and gives a new directive. Now do this until I said so. So, you hit the wall, and then they say, now do this, right? Forever, right? Now, dogmatic patterns usually end in a certain amount of violence, right? Because there's no brakes. A car, for example, if it started off at 30 miles an hour, head north, and don't slow down and is going to crash, right? Because it's going to run into traffic, and its code is don't slow down. And so it's going to start hitting the cars in front of it and break down, or hitting a wall, or there'll be a bridge, that's up, and its code says just go forward north at 30 miles an hour, and it's going to, drive into the train or the bridge, because it doesn't have regulating, right? Go forward, that's it, right? And so it's a simple, and it's going to end in violence, because that code does not respect, it doesn't see what's going on around it. So now that we've established that, the patterns of identity, our pattern of thinking, feeling, speaking, doing, and being, which we identify with and say, that's me. This starts, 1 year old, right? And then it continues at 2 years old, and then it continues at 3 years old, and then it continues at 4 years old. Now, each moment in where an identity, where a pattern is formed, a pattern of thinking, feeling, speaking, doing, and being, that pattern is viewed as the most successful pattern from the eyes of the current identity, right? So let's say you're a 1-year-old kid, and when you need milk, you scream. Now, why do you scream, right? Well, the pattern has to form, right? And patterns form under the influence of pain and pleasure. So an infant needs milk. It's in a dependent relationship with a giantess, a mother. Needs milk. And when it doesn't get milk, it feels bad. Its brain can't develop as rapidly. It feels bad. So the child might send out psychic vibes. I want some milk. The child may squirm around. I want some milk. The child may wiggle their fingers. I want some milk. But over time, the child learns that these symbols, these ways of communicating with the mother, are not as effective as screaming. Why? Well, the child does like this, and the mother's talking with her friend. Maybe the mother doesn't want to, feed the child milk. In a culture where breasts are sexual objects, if the mother is on a date or with a man she doesn't want to have sex with, maybe she doesn't want to lift her breast and plant that seed, which has sexual connotations in a cult that sexualizes breasts. So she may have a variety of resistances. Maybe she's tired, doesn't really want to get up and go over to get the child out of the crib and milk the child, right? So the mother has resistance. And so that's not a big incentive to a mother who's in resistance. The mother may be on the telephone, et cetera, and just say, forget about the child. I need to do things. But if the child screams, number one, it's irritating. Number two, people say you're a bad mother. Go take care of your 1-year-old. And so that works, right? The child gets milk when they scream. They don't get milk when they waggle their fingers, when they kick their feet, when they send out psychic vibes, etc. And so the identity, the pattern, is need milk, scream, need milk, scream, need milk, scream. So this develops as the 1-year-old identity, the 1-year-old pattern. Need milk, scream, need milk, scream, need milk, scream. Works very well. Now, at a certain point, the mother is going to say, wait a minute, you're 3 years old, you're 5 years old. You shouldn't be screaming, you should be talking. So I'm going to teach you to talk. And if you scream, I'm not going to give you milk. But if you say, may I have some milk, and I'll get you a glass of milk from the fridge. And so what happens is a giant, a large energy, shapes the pattern in a different way. It says, no, we say please and we talk in this house. We don't just scream. So if you scream, you're now screaming, you go to your room. Before screaming, you got milk. Well, what's going on? Why am I going to my room? Well, that was before. That was before. Like, we assessed that you had to stop, you had to scream because you didn't know language, and you were completely dependent and helpless. But now you're older, you're tougher, And you should be learning to talk. So let's learn to talk. And if you don't want to learn to talk, then no milk for you. And now you should be able to do this. If you don't want to do that, well, then that's not good for you either. So now we have a new pattern. Talking about milk and getting milk. Right? So it's a new identity. This maybe is the 2-year-old. Maybe it's the 3-year-old. And before we had an identity of hugging and being in proximity. Well, now we have an identity of go play and go do this, right? Now, these are not shut down identities, right? But they are still remembrances. There is a body memory. There's a part of us that remembers that if we really need something, screaming may be a good idea. Help, help, right? And so in dire emergencies, that's what people do, right? Help, 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 help. Something's happened, I'm being hurt, right? And so we go back to the 1-year-old identity. And we say, okay, you can be 1-year-old if you're, being gang raped or if you're being stolen from. But if you just need to get your mail, standing at the front porch yelling help, we're not going to do that. We're going to tell you, here's your mailbox, go walk over here, get your mail, and come back, right? And so these are learned patterns. And what's important to understand is that each learned pattern is different. And these patterns are following a healthy, attuned process, meaning, okay, you can now, 90% of 3-year-olds are beginning to talk. So unless you have a mental or emotional disability, you are disabled, meaning you aren't abled. Your brain is not abling you to speak and think. You're disabled rather than abled. Then we're going to, progress things along in the way that our culture has kind of outlined as the map of maturing. Now, what happens, though, is in a parentally illiterate culture where nobody gets parental training, right? So dysfunctional families teach children how to be dysfunctional, and competent families teach children how to be competent. And, mediocre families teach children how to be mediocre, right? But there's no formal training that's standardized for here's what great parenting looks like, and here's how you can learn to be a great parent for your children, right? There are books, but of course, incompetent parents don't read the books and don't teach their children to read the books, right? Incompetent parents blame their children and teach the children to blame their children, not to read books, right? Because it's important to understand that in the archaeology and evolution of identity, we all get handed patterns of thinking, feeling, speaking, and doing and being that we copy and conform to unless there's an incentive to do something different. So every child learns and just copies and downloads what was given to them. And then to varying degrees throughout life, depending on the person, you may rebel, you may develop a better way of doing things, or you may just unconsciously leave it and be in a loop where you do to your children what your parents did to you with little or no conscious intervention. And so how does that happen, right? Well, let's say that you need something as a 1-year-old, you need milk, and so you cry. But rather than being given milk, you're given a slap on the face and you're put into the other room and left there for an indefinite period of time. So now your brain doesn't develop because it's not getting milk. Your body isn't developed. You're learning that there's scarcity. But you're also learning that even though you're not going to get what you need if you talk about it, you speak up. If you do speak up, it's even worse. And so what you learn at, maybe by 1.5 years old is to go silent. So you tried the screaming, that didn't work, and then you went silent. And what you learned is that when you are silent about what you need, you're not put in the other room, and eventually you get the milk, and you're not slapped. Now, you don't get enough milk, and you don't get it in a timely manner, so it's not optimal, but it's better to be silent than it is to scream. So you learn silence. Now, if people appreciate your silence, right? So you're now 3, 4 years old, and other children are screaming or arguing or manipulating to get what they want, and you're just silent and you're sitting there. And people say, look at that little boy. Isn't he nice and quiet? You don't see him complaining. You don't see him screaming. We want you to be like that little boy. And they nod approvingly. Aha. See, now you're getting more. You're getting praise. You're getting recognition for being silent. So the silent thing continues, right? You start dating and someone says, what do you want? What do you need? You say, I'm good. Nothing. What do you want? They say, oh, I want this and this and this and this. Is that all right? Okay. Oh, I like hanging around you. I do whatever I want and you go along with it, right? That's good. My past girlfriend, whatever, that was always wanting things and doing this, and it was so irritating. You're low maintenance. Yeah, that's me. Okay. So you get praised again. So the message is silence around needs. I need things, I'm silent about them, and I get some of them, and people praise and reward me for being silent. Now, let's imagine that now you go into a new type of relationship with someone who isn't completely narcissistic and isn't delighted that you don't exist, right? Because narcissistic parents are delighted that you don't exist. And narcissistic teachers are delighted, right? You got 30 kids and one of them doesn't need and want anything. Oh, I need more of those, right? I could easily teach 30 kids if none of them wanted anything and none of them asked for anything, right? Maybe the problem is not that I've got 30 kids. Maybe the problem is they're not all silent. That could be, right? And, right? So, so a narcissistic parent, a narcissistic teacher, a narcissistic lover. Wonderful, wonderful. A silent, unneeding person who just sits there and lets me focus on me. Wonderful, right? But let's say you meet a healthy person. All this is going along until age 21. You meet a healthy person and they really want to know, no, I want to know what makes you happy. And there's a wall between this pivot, right? So this is the identity that's been going along all this time. And now there's an invitation to change. Now, in order to go through this change, one has to move biologically through all of the resistance to the new identity, which is the same as all of the motivation for the old pattern, the old identity that I identify with. And in that territory, the first thing may be being slapped, right? You don't want to feel slapped, but your body reminds you. Your body says, you could get slapped if you actually speak up here. This is not a mental thing. Your body is saying you could be slapped. And you've got to move through that fear of being slapped to change the identity. Now, next, you liked feeling praised by your teacher and the other parents. You liked being praised. And so you realize, I'm not going to be praised, and those parents won't like me anymore. You have to move through that. And then you liked that boyfriend telling you how great you were because you didn't exist, right? And so now you have to move through that. Like he would reject me now. If I become this new pattern that speaks what I need and want, those people won't like me. My mom would hit me. I wouldn't get milk. And these men won't date me. I don't know. I don't want to give that up. I don't want to give that up. Well, come on. I want to hear what you have to say. Yeah, but I don't want to give all that up. Right? Now, so in many cases, the old identity continues because it's gotten more pleasure than pain. Now, that on an unconscious level is the default mode. Any pattern that generates more benefit than hassle on an ongoing level stays. And any pattern that starts to create way more pain than problem, then we change at that point. But as long as I've got narcissistic people who are available to reward me for being silent, and I know how to do that, I'll just continue to be an invisible, silent person. But let's say you develop a goal at some point. See, the years have gone by, the years have gone by, the years have gone by, and then you develop a goal. I want to create a reality with this. Let's say I'm dying of cancer or whatever, and I want to create a different reality. I want to create something, number one. Number two, no one else wants to create this. This is my idea. Right? I can't look around. No one else is doing it. I want to do this, and this is my idea. Okay. So, right. I can't do it because a silent person cannot advocate. And I am a silent person. I'm a silent person because I'm a silent person. And I'm a silent person because I was a silent person. And I was a silent person because that was rewarded in my family system. But now I'm having a motivational speaker that's saying, speak up and ask for what you want. And I think about it, and it makes sense. If I want something and nobody knows, and they want to give it to me, and they say, what do you want? And I say, nothing. And then I get nothing when I in fact want this, I need to change this habit. But I'm not doing it. I need to, but I'm not doing it. I need to, but I'm not doing it. Well, at some point, disappointment, frustration, missed opportunities accumulate with the old pattern. And more pain and disappointment gets associated with the old pattern. I just keep failing because I won't speak up. And at some point, the pain reaches a point where it offsets all of those past benefits. And damn it, I'm speaking up. No more silence. Now, when we speak up, then we experience a benefit, right? All I had to do all this time was speak up and pick people who like people that speak up. Now I'm getting what I wanted here and I wanted there, and I'm now experiencing a new pattern. I'm now in a new pattern. I'm speaking up, getting what I want, speaking up, getting what I want, speaking up, getting what I want. I'm in the new pattern. And So I'm doing that year. And then next year, I'm speaking up even more and wanting even more, and I'm getting even more. And then next year, I'm speaking up even more, and I'm getting what I want even more. But at some point in that trajectory, first of all, I got all the low-hanging fruit the first time I spoke up, right? And secondly, people realize, well, it's about time. You haven't spoken up for 20 years, so finally you're speaking up. Well, this will be your year, right? But if you keep moving in that direction of I'm going to speak up and want more and want more and want more, first of all, the low-hanging fruit are all off. Secondly, at some point in that movement, it will be out of balance. Like, wait a minute, you're talking too much. Give this person a chance to speak and get what they want, right? It's a conversation. It's not a monologue. So make it about them. Well, now the pattern has to shift to something different, where be silent, listen, speak up, and get what you want. Be silent, listen, speak up, get what you want, right? It's a more complex pattern. It's not one, it's not the other. You're finding a point of balance and sustainability, right? But then you encounter a group of narcissists, right, that fill in all of this space at twice the amount that you are and don't give room. So you start being used and being in an imbalanced relationship, and the pain increases. And then you start fighting, and arguing becomes your pattern. Hey, it's my turn here. Get back in line. So it's a new pattern. Hey, it's my turn. Get back in line. Hey, it's my turn. Get back in line. And you realize there's some space there, right? So I'm going to argue with this, and I'm going to go out and protest this, right? But eventually, again, that pattern moves into, now I'm a woke protester. Every time I see something other people, it's always other people are doing wrong, it's not me. Every time other people are doing something wrong, I'm going to go over and protest and and it's great. I'm going to learn how to protest. I protest. I protest that, right? Figure out how it could be better. Look at what is. It's never good enough, right? It's never as good as it could be, so I'm going to protest. Could be better. So I do that, right? But then, we stop getting invited to the parties, right? Nobody wants to have a party with a bunch of people protesting the party and everything and everyone else in it, right? So it's like I become a very good protester who isn't at any parties. Okay? At what point, maybe I'll just let go of all that protest and enjoy some parties, right? So you have a new identity, a new pattern. Now, the enemy is a pattern, identity, that is out of sync with its ecology, with its environment, and is consequently creating the opposite of what we say or what we want. I want this, but I'm doing this, and it's creating that. I want this, but I'm doing this, and it's creating that. Now we have the idea of an enemy, right? Some part of me keeps spending money when I want to save money. I want to save money, but the part of me that learns that I feel good when I spend money is still spending money. What did I do? I just bought another thing I don't need because I learned at one point that spending money made me feel good and made me feel important, and I want to feel good and I want to feel important, but I don't feel good and I don't feel important. I feel in debt. Right? The debt doesn't make me feel good. The interest payments make me feel stupid, not important. Right? And at some point, that will change the pattern. Now, the big problem comes with what I would call dissociative kind of chronic patterns. So how does that get developed, right? Well, it's a lot in childhood. Someone is traumatized. A 5-year-old is traumatized. They're hit, right? They're hit. Go do this. Don't do this. You're stupid. Don't be so stupid, but you're so stupid. I thought I shouldn't. Don't talk back. Don't talk back. Stop being stupid. Stupid people don't talk back. You're stupid. Don't be stupid. You're stupid. Don't talk back. You're stupid. Don't be stupid. Stupid people don't talk back. You're talking. Whoa. Right. Okay, I'm stupid. Okay, so what does stupid means? I can't talk. I can't communicate. I get all clumsy and this and that, the other. I don't know anything. I'm flustered. That's what stupid people do. Okay, so I've just been brainwashed into identifying with being stupid. So I put my head down, I get flustered, I get confused, and I be quiet, and I admit that I'm stupid. And then Dad's happy. I just have to be stupid and look down and not move, and I can survive this environment. Don't look up, and don't talk back, and don't question your father. And you're stupid, right? Now, this worked, right? I'm there, and Dad seems to enjoy telling me how dumb I am. Okay, I'm dumb. He tells me how dumb I am. This is moving along. There's no out, though. It's not like someone comes along when you're 5 or 6 or 7 and then says, you're no longer stupid anymore, and nobody wants you to be stupid anymore. Right? That was hammered in traumatically at a young age. And having been told that one is stupid and that one shouldn't question and it's now continuing. And so there's a bunch of emotional charge that is invested in feeling safe by being stupid, right? So it's there. And if you try and talk with it, well, you're told not to talk back. You're not to question it. So I shouldn't do that, or I might die, or I might be unwanted. I should just do nothing. Well, now there's a part in our body, in our psyche, that anytime anyone gets angry, it feels like the best thing to do is to be stupid and not to question it, just to do it and be stupid. And so someone gets angry, our boss, our partner gets angry, and we go into stupid mode. Look down, confused, don't say anything. Someone says, speak, speak, speak. We look down, we know we can't speak. They say, speak. If you don't speak, you're fired. We look down because we know we shouldn't speak. They fire us. We're still alive. And that young part says, oh, we survived again, right? We didn't get beaten. We survived. But the grown-up part is looking at that and saying, what an idiot. All I had to do was look up and say, I think you're upset about this, but you misunderstand. But you see, when we were 5, that could have killed us because a maniac won't realize the truth. They will bully a child, right? But a boss might realize, a good one might realize the truth, and if they're a rotten boss, we might want to get another one. And then there's another thing here that says the only way to get attention is to make big mistakes and start crying. So again, we're moving towards success, and we make mistakes and start crying. The success falls apart, but we get the attention and we feel like we're succeeding. This part feels like it's succeeding. Now, one of the things that goes on in shame-based families is that children are scapegoated and then they're dissociated from. Those stupid children, they have nothing to do with me, right? And so we learn to dissociate from our coping mechanisms, is a good way to call these entities. and said, oh, that dumb child, whatever. I want nothing to do with it. I want to leave home. I want to get far away. I don't want anyone to remind me of those feelings. So we leave home, we do a new pattern, and we shame and dissociate. I'm not that person I was. I hate that person that I was. I want nothing to do with the person I was. Well, the problem is that part is still inside who we are. It's still part of the identity, part of the pattern. The other thing is it hasn't, because we have nothing to do with it, it hasn't gotten an update in its code. It's like a computer program that was coded by an idiot to do idiotic things. And then we say, I want nothing to do with that. And we start coding new stuff in another area of the hard drive, but the other program is still running. Look down in this. And so if we understand that throughout our life we have been rewarded for things that don't make sense anymore, but there's also been codes that trap the program in a loop. Don't question. Don't look back. If you look up at your abuser, they'll hit you again. So we don't look up. We don't look back. And then, with those programs desperately trying to keep us alive in their age range, in their time frame, they undermine what we're trying to do now as more mature, more sophisticated grown-ups. And so we have an enemy that's doing its best to keep us alive, using outdated software with no way to update. Because when you say, don't talk back to your parents, don't think, don't question authority, how dare you upset your father for even thinking that this might be a dumb idea? You're a bad kid. We'll send you to an orphanage, right? Well, then you realize that what's really, really upsetting these idiots is thinking and being intelligent and questioning. Well, if lying is so bad, why did you just lie to mom? Don't you talk, right? So basically go crazy and don't talk about it and don't think. Because I'm too much of a coward to acknowledge what's going on in the family. Because I'm a hypocrite. Because I'm schizophrenic. You should be too, and don't remind me, right? And so this is how a seeming enemy that's just loyally doing its job, running the software that kept us alive, undermining us for 10, 20, 30 years, because we don't have the competency to go back in a psychologically illiterate culture and redo the code and say, hey, you've been doing a great job. Thanks for keeping me alive at age 4. This is not a good program. That was just Dad's dumb idea based on his upbringing, right? And this one over here, get in an accident and cry. Yeah, it has its perks, but no, it's not the main, it's not the latest edition of the software. And thank you for running that for 20 years and getting us lots of attention. I've got a better idea at the moment, but thank you. And I'm sorry you were without any adults and any competent friends to help you with this, but I'll try and give you a better path. Here's what I'm doing in my life, and let's create a more sane reality for you in meditation. And let's create a nice reality where you ask for what you want and someone loves giving it to you, and you talk about what does and doesn't work, and you want attention, and you say, hey, I'd love some attention around here. Would you like an entertainment, or can I just tell you what I'd like to be celebrated for? And I'm with adults who actually enjoy that, and so, that works. How about that, right? A new pattern. Well, this is how we create integrity between the old code and the new code, so that half of who we are doesn't pull us down and in the opposite direction of our new and latest ideas of abundance and success. Hello, I'm Dane Rose, and I want to begin by highlighting one of the most shocking things that I've discovered at age 47, which is that no one has, and perhaps no one ever will, introduce me to life. No one's ever sat me down at any point and said, this is how life works, this is why it works. These are the most important aspects of life. And I find that incredible. Now, when that thought occurred to me, that 700 books in, that hundreds of courses in, that decades of introspection and learning into this life, I still didn't have a formal introduction to what this is all about, right? It seems absurd, right? So there's a moment of criticism. Why hasn't anyone pointed these things out, right? And it's fun. The adolescent's job is to criticize the inevitable and innate imperfections of everything, including the cultural blind spots that see so many of us going through life without knowing what's going on. But it's the adult's job to do something about it, right? The world is not perfect. The world is not fair. And if something bothers us, what to do about it? And this book, An Introduction to Life, is my response to that critique, my response to that irritation, that imperfection in my life. And although there are well over 100 chapters, it's the biggest book, naturally. It's a big topic that I've ever written. I thought I'd just randomly pick a few of the chapters and, to get a little bit of a sense of what's involved. So on the first thing, we've got the big picture, evolution. We've got the 4 operating systems of the brain, the 4 brains, and the protocols they use to filter information and make decisions. The sociopathic or reptilian brain, the rational or pattern organizing brain, the empathic brain and its decision-making protocol, and the transcendent brain, right? Now, that's one of the most revolutionary understandings that I've come across that nobody introduced me to. If we go on to 3 random pictures or windows into the book on the next page of the contents, we've got the ego, self, and breathing. We've got chauvinism and its cultural underpinnings. We've got optimal roles. We've got PTSD, a stunning thing that I didn't learn about until I was 40 years old, that has more than a 30% invisible influence on every person and on the culture as a whole. The culture and its cult-like nature, how it can be our enemy, how it can be our friend, what its role is. We have cult and ego architecture, just going into that a little bit more deeply. The next page of, another 50 chapters, we've got key cycles in life, things that you want to be aware that repeat themselves over and over again. that have throughout history, the history of humanity, and will continue to repeat themselves. What are those key cycles, and how do we attune to those? Emotional literacy, right? What is an emotion? How is it different from a feeling? Now, in a psychologically illiterate culture, we don't know the difference between an emotion and a feeling, as evidenced by the fact that you, as a representation of the 99%, cannot articulate it clearly. And if you do, your articulation will not agree with the next person. Feelings and emotions, right? Positive and negative emotions. Are they the same as good and bad? Like all of this, any one of these things takes years to understand with wisdom and depth, right? But in most cases, we don't even know that we don't know about it. Grounded to reptile, right? Why we regress to the reptilian brain in traumatic states, right? Why our tether is the oldest brain. Purpose and meaning, how do we organize it? What is meaningful and what is not meaningful? Do you know the core ingredient in meaning? How to increase a life of meaning, how to decrease a life in meaning, right? Every question is a quest, and what are the quests that you're on? That's another page. Two more tables of content pages. The deepest cuts to our humanity, right? We all live in a cult, in a culture, with a norm, a normal pattern of thinking, feeling, speaking, doing, and being. And how do those norms undermine the human operating, which is the empathic operating system in our brain? Understanding the math of cultural impact, investing in our future, individually and globally. Losing oneself. What does it mean when we say we lose ourself? What is that self, right? And when is it good to lose ourselves and find a new pattern of thinking, feeling, speaking, doing, and being? And when is it a disaster? When is it a crisis to lose ourselves and perhaps regress to an older pattern of thinking, feeling, speaking, being? We have advice, criticism, and direction. Some tips, right, in life. Get excellent at something. The circle in life, right? Why is the circle the most fundamental shape in geometry, in the liminal space between masculine and feminine, between duality and the one? Learn from nature, right? When wrong ideas are right, right? When does a wrong idea take us in the right direction for our sustainable well-being? It's not true, but it takes us to a better place. And in those instances, do you cling to what's true, or do you value the improvement that comes to your life? So a very light dive into the table of contents. But my belief from thousands of conversations, hundreds of books, talking with various teachers, etc., my belief is that if you are exceptional, right, if you are an architect of ideas, if you understand the building blocks of consciousness and ideas and the way they create the illusion of our reality, that you can read a book like this and spark 12 or more % of new gestalts, of new configurations, right? Of your consciousness, of your frameworks. You can iterate, you can evolve. If you're a naive teenager, as I was, 90% of this is useful grist for the mill, new populations of consciousness, of ideas, right? If you're an average middle-aged person, as I am, 30% of this, if you'll skim the chapters and highlight, ooh, there might be something there for me, might be something there here, there might be something there, and then come back and actually read those chapters that speak to you, or use it as an I Ching and open up to something. That there is going to be things that you didn't know that are useful, that can propel you to a better quality of life. And that's what makes a book an act of love, right? It's an act of creativity. But love, is a process. You have the love of need. I need you, the infant. Right? You have the love of desire. I want you, the adolescent. But then you have the love of giving. First to ourselves, adult love, and then to others, right? I'm still learning. This book was a gift for me. Someone introduced me to life through this book, right? And 30% of the ideas catalyzed have had a positive impact in the course of articulating and writing, etc. But they may also be fruitful for you. That's the gift of the information age of technology. It's not either or. Right? Once I wrote the book for me, I can print more copies for you without diluting. Right? It's a gift to me to talk with someone who's read this book as opposed to someone who hasn't. Right? So, loving enough to care, caring enough to take time, taking enough time to see, seeing enough to understand what is being seen, understanding enough to empathize, to transcend the rational brain into the human realm of empathy, understanding enough to empathize, and empathizing with understanding enough to attune, and attuning successfully enough to succeed at facilitating survival, security of survival, a sense of love and belonging, self-esteem, the articulation of ideals and the paths that take us towards those ideals, called principles or best practices. And the respect we earn by following the best practices that create the world that we state that we want, right? Earned love, self-esteem. By developing our gifts, discovering what they are. I'm good at math. I'm good at listening in a way that people say things they've never said before. Discovering my gifts. And then bringing those gifts deeper and deeper into the world in a way that creates abundance for myself, for others, that creates value. And finally, serving something, becoming a part of something bigger than ourselves. That's adult love, and it's a process of blossoming, right? And if a book facilitates self-awareness, understanding, empathy, facilitates action that leads to increased survival, security, love and belonging, self-esteem, discovery and development of our talents and gifts, bringing those into the world, and becoming part of something bigger. If it does that, we have succeeded at bringing a profound state of love, a transformative state, a useful state of love, an adult state of love into the world.